When it comes to your personal finances, for the most part, one of the things every personal finance program kind of has in common is the use of a budget. You got to start by making sure that you can pay all of your bills every month. You get that piece of paper and a pen or pencil out and a calculator, and you sit down and you write down how much you got coming in every month. And then you're thinking, well, let's see, I got to have this bill paid and that bill paid. And you think, hey, I've got all my bills paid and money left over. My budget looks good. That's what you think, right? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you a lesson from my debt-free millionaire system called the budgeting myth. And in this video, you're going to discover that there are 3 things to watch out for when it comes to using a budget. In fact, these 3 things could cost you a ton of money. Now, before I share the lesson with you, I'd like for you to just consider subscribing to our channel. To subscribe, just go ahead and click on the button. And when you click that button, go ahead and click the bell so you'll be notified when more videos like these are posted to our channel. For now, let's go ahead and get to that budgeting myth lesson. This session is all about the financial myth that budgeting is necessary for you to succeed financially. Now, it seems that just about anywhere you go looking for help with your finances, there is one common thread, one thing that all of those other strategies have in common. That one thing is the use of a budget. Now, don't get me wrong. Using a budget can be helpful. For many people, it can be a real eye-opening experience to see how much money you're actually spending on a regular basis. But in this session, I'm going to share with you something that I believe will make that little light bulb in your head go on. And you'll see that budgeting, while better than doing nothing at all, accomplishes only half of what you really need to accomplish. Let's take a look at what our old friend Merriam-Webster has to say about the word budget. Now, there are several definitions, but the one we're going to zero in on is this one. A budget is a statement of the financial position of an administration for a definite period of time, based on estimates of expenditures during the period and proposals for financing them. When it comes to a personal budget, you are the administration, and the expenses are things like your mortgage or rent payments, other things like debt payments for your student loan, or maybe your car or credit card payments, and all of your living expenses, things like utilities and such. And the proposal for financing those expenses is your household's total net monthly income. Pretty simple. I'm going to use those Fortunato family example numbers again to demonstrate how budgeting can cost you thousands of dollars every year. Here's how their budget will look. Their total net monthly income is $4,600. Monthly living expenses are $1,600. Secured debt per month, their house and car payments, $2,173. 4 credit cards, $402 per month. With these numbers, they have just about $425 left over each month. A couple of quick points here. First, you may be thinking that the living expenses that I've outlined, they may seem a little bit high to you. Let me put that $1,600 in perspective. This amount isn't just for utilities and food. This category covers everything. I'm talking about gas for both cars, property taxes, insurance, cell phone, clothes, even the amount of money that they spend each year on vacations and birthday presents and Christmas presents. I'm talking about every single penny they spend. Second is the $425 a month they have left over. If you remember from the Pay Yourself First Money Myth coaching session, we talked about how the Pay Yourself First strategy is all about taking 10% of your net monthly income and investing it for the future. Well, if these were your numbers and you were to sit down with a traditional financial planner, they'd probably encourage you to pay yourself first with that money and start socking it away for retirement and maybe even towards the kids' college education. And you'd probably feel pretty good about doing this because, heck, that's the kind of financial situation everybody would like. How would you feel right now if everything was paid and you had over $400 left over every month? Pretty good, wouldn't you? Have you ever heard the story about a frog in boiling water? It's the one where you're told that if you drop a frog in boiling water, it will promptly and frantically hop the heck right out of there. No hesitation, no delay, just an immediate and deliberate escape. But if you put the frog in a pot of water that's close to body temperature and then slowly turn up the heat so that it comes to a boil slowly, the frog, it won't be able to tell the difference and it will simply boil to death. Well, the reason for this is because As the temperature changes so gradually, the frog's body temperature continues to adjust until it's just a little bit too late, and you wind up with frog soup. When you follow common budgeting techniques, you also run the risk of being slowly boiled to death in a financial way. Let me take a minute to explain. Let's take another peek at the Fortunato budget. There are three things, I call them budgetary heating elements, that can essentially turn the heat up on you very gradually, which can lead to you slowly boiling to death financially. The first budgetary heating element is something I call misguided focus. Let's take a look at what most people focus on when they use a budget. And when using a budget, invariably your focus is drawn to the amount on the bottom of the page, where the balance is. And what you have left over is something that you're looking for after everything is paid. What you're hoping to see down there is a positive number, right? Of course you are. And if you're fortunate enough to have a budget like the Fortunatos do, one with $400 and change left over, that kind of budget would be considered pretty successful. I mean, why not? You've got all of your bills paid, all of them, each and every month, and some pretty healthy dough left over. So why wouldn't you feel good? Or maybe your budget is like the kind of budget where you have a small number down there, and maybe it's even negative. But you take the time and you put your attention on the numbers in between those middle numbers, and you work those numbers and the expenses to try to trim them down, and you do everything you can to lower those numbers so you can make up for that small number at the bottom and turn it into a healthy positive number after you've worked your budget. Now let's assume that even if you have a small or negative number down there, that you've played with all of the numbers in the middle of the page and the number at the bottom has become fairly healthy. How do you feel? How does it, or how would it feel if your bottom number was healthy? Pretty good, right? Good enough to create a feeling of financial comfort. Here's the problem. That feeling of comfort can lead to a false sense of security. Why? Because when you think you have a balanced budget, one that can safely and comfortably satisfy all of your expenses, you believe any work your budget requires is done. And it's this kind of budgetary comfort that can slowly turn the temperature up on you financially. Here's what I mean. The first heating element, misguided focus, has you focusing on creating what you believe to be a healthy budgetary balance. And that leads to overlooking the most important number in any budget. Do you know what that number is? It's this one, the one at the top, your income. It's the most important number in any budget. Now, this is not to say that the other numbers aren't important, but what I am saying is that if you allow your focus to be directed only to the bottom number and focus only there on making that bottom number, as healthy and as positive as you can, you run the risk of becoming complacent and comfortable when you achieve that goal. Because when you believe that your budget is complete and fail to realize something very important, that very important thing that you fail to realize is a second budgetary heating element, which is something I call income mortality. Income mortality, well, it means exactly what the name implies. Your income, whatever that amount is most definitely not immortal. It will one day come to an end. But when you're feeling comfortable and believing that your budget is balanced and all of your bills are paid, and you even have a decent amount of cash left over every month, your effort to work your budget seems to come to rest. Now, the only time you should feel comfortable when that bottom number is a healthy number is when your income, that top number, is not being generated by something that requires you to go to work regularly to create it. Instead of thinking in terms of budgeting, you need to think in terms of cash flow. Cash flow in business has the business owner focused more on the top number than that number at the bottom. Of course, a business owner pays attention to all of the numbers involved, but he knows that the number at the top has to be a number that can be consistently and reliably counted on. And that's the way you need to think. You just might be taking that number at the top of the page for granted. Perhaps one of the most important themes in your debt-free millionaire system is this. Now, you might want to write this down. You need to think in terms of using the income from your job or career to replace the income from your job or career. Take a moment and allow that one to sink in just a little bit. To successfully accomplish this, you need to understand what's happening between the numbers at the top and the bottom of your budget. Understanding what's happening in the middle of the page is to understand the third budgetary heating element, which is something I call income corrosion. Now, Webster defines the word corrode as to slowly break apart and destroy through a chemical process. Income corrosion takes place when the numbers in the middle of the page work against your ultimate objective. And that objective is to achieve your personal wealth potential. It works against it by slowly breaking apart and destroying your income through an interest rate process. Here's what I mean. You know you'll have living expenses, and sure, you can do whatever you can to make sure that they're not being wasteful, all right? But when you think about this category, you realize that, hey, you gotta live, right? I mean, after all, that's why they're called living expenses. So while you do need to be frugal and reasonable here, this category really can't go away because you're going to have to eat and pay your utilities and other expenses in this category for the rest of your life in order to live. And actually, isn't having a life what it's all about anyway? But these two categories, secured and unsecured debt, are expenses that have balances. That means if the balances disappear, so does the expense, the payment. Are you beginning to follow me here? Perhaps you've made the mistake of believing that your have a life satisfaction should be funded here. Because when you purchase something with credit and debt, it's usually to help yourself feel better, like a nice house, a nice car, that diploma hanging on the wall. What's really happening in these two categories internally with regard to what you're paying in interest each month is slowly corroding your income from the inside out, making it nearly impossible for you to even conceive of using your personal cash flow to replace the number at the top of the page. And you often overlook these two categories if the number at the bottom of the page is healthy. But by learning how to properly deal with these two categories, you can make achieving your wealth potential very, very possible. For one, compare the total of these two categories with the category that has living in its title. You're probably spending much less money on living than you are on debt. Let's take another look at how debt acts as a corrosive enzyme to achieving your wealth potential using these numbers again. Here, I'm going to show you how much debt is costing you right now. In this example, you have your house payment, you have 2 car payments, and all those credit card payments. The house and car payments, well, those are 2 debts that incur something called simple interest. The credit card payments incur something called revolving or compound interest. I'll explain those in more detail later on, but for now, we're going to focus on what's happening in a single month when these payments are made. And you're about to see how what you may think are low interest rates can be as high as 60% or more. Just check this out. Let's say you're in the 5th year of your mortgage and you're making mortgage payment number 62. One of your cars is on payment 15 and the other is on payment 18. The payment number is important because of those amortization tables that I talked about before. For simple interest loans, the payment number from the amortization schedule determines the amount being applied towards the principal and interest for that payment. Credit cards, they incur compound interest. And when you make a payment, the amounts applied towards principal and interest are calculated differently. Again, we'll cover that later. For now, I want to show you an example of how much you're forking out each month is applied towards principal and what's being applied towards interest. And just to be sure that you're tracking with me here, interest is the profit your lenders make off of all of your payments. So for these payments, you fork out $2,575. Guess what amount is applied towards principal? Are you ready? $1,082.61. And $1,492.39 is applied towards interest. In other words, you're being charged almost $1,500 for that $1,082 that month. That's insane. Look at it this way. Of your $2,575 in total debt payments each month that you're paying, 60% is interest. And to me, that sounds like 60% interest. What do you think your numbers are? One thing you should know is that they're probably pretty close percentage-wise. While the amounts may be bigger or smaller, the percentages will be somewhat in this ballpark because debt is usually proportionate to income. Think about what year you're in with your current mortgage if you have one. Have you been seduced into refinancing because you could lower your payments? Here's something very important that you need to know. If you're in the first 7 years of your mortgage, depending on the interest for the loan, between 79 and 86% of your payment each month is profit to the mortgage company. Now, I know there's a lot of stuff going on about lower interest rates, like the lowest kind in history. If you're one of the fortunate few who actually qualify for one of those bargain basement interest rates, say 4% over 30 years, over the first 7 years of that mortgage with such a low interest rate, still more than 65% of the first 84 payments is profit to the mortgage company. Let's take a look at these numbers from a different perspective. If these were your numbers, you'd have $425 left over. And you'd probably think this is a pretty successful budget. But this month, you're paying almost $1,500 in interest, which is 3.5 times that $425. That's why I call this income corrosion. Because while you're making payments and you think you're getting ahead because you have something left over, and maybe you're even paying yourself first, even if it's several $100s a month, each month the interest you're paying is corroding your income from the inside out. And that's why traditional budgeting doesn't work, because it completely overlooks the internal corrosive impact of debt and credit interest. That's also why the first step in achieving your wealth potential after you've discovered what debt and credit truly are is to eliminate each and every penny of debt. Once you become completely debt-free, and I'll coach you through that later on. By the way, the average debt elimination time frame is about 6 to 8 years. And I mean eliminating everything. Your mortgage, student loans, car loans, credit cards, everything in just about 6 to 8 years. Then instead of forking over hundreds or thousands of dollars each and every month to your creditors, you can redirect that lost cash flow towards accumulating real wealth for you instead of for your creditors. Now, one of the most common questions I get is, how is it possible to become debt-free so quickly? The answer to that question is kind of simple. I'll coach you through it later on, but here's a quick perspective on it. Let's take a different look at the Fortunato numbers again. They have that total amount of debt of $238,273.25. And they bring home $4,600 a month, each month now. Think about what your numbers are and follow along with this simple explanation as to how it's completely and totally possible to become debt-free so quickly. Let's multiply the total amount of debt they owe by 2. When we do this for the Fortunatos, we get $476,546.50. Now, why am I multiplying this number by 2? Follow along with me and you'll see why. Now, take the net monthly income and annualize it by multiplying that by 12 and get their total net annual income. When you do this, multiplying $4,600 by 12 will give you $55,200. Now, when you divide the amount that's twice the debt that's owed, in this case, $476,546.50, you take that and you divide it by the annualized net income, or the $55,200, you get 8.6. So what's the significance of the number 8.6? Well, that means in just a little over 8.5 years, you would bring home 2 times the amount you owe. So the question isn't, how is it possible to become debt-free so quickly? The question is, how come it's not possible? Most people will be able to eliminate all of their debt in less time than the number we just calculated, that 8.6. You'll see how this works later on in your debt-free millionaire system. But first, you have to get beyond merely conceiving that it's possible. You also have to begin to believe that it's possible. Now you know why budgeting in and of itself just isn't enough. You've got to have a bigger vision than just paying your bills, right? Now, if you'd like to get more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the bell when you hit the subscribe button. That way you'll be notified when we post more videos like this. Also, I want to offer you a free 3-part training called People Are Lying to You and It's Costing You a Fortune. If you thought this video was good, you'll love that training. It is a 3-part training that will walk you through more truth about money that you may have not considered in the past. Meanwhile, thanks for watching, take advantage of the training, and we'll see you next time.